Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Golden Feather Tavern. You are now watching Tavern Talk, where the hosts, Virtek, not Chibi today, apologies, the cute one is not here. But either way, Virtek is one of two keepers of this fine establishment. The Golden Feather Tavern is open to all travelers to come and share their thoughts on the inner workings of Vera over a nice tankard of ale, mead, hot chocolate, or other delicious beverage of choice. So, raise your glass, pull up a chair, as we delve into tonight's discussions. Today is the... Uh-oh. There is no background music. Let me fix this. One moment. I'm falling apart here. No chibi to keep me together. All right. There we go. All right, we got the background music. So yeah, today is the 21st of May, 2024. We are in episode 18, Armor, Action Wheels, and Dungeons. Oh my. And on tap today, we have those topics there. A discussion on female armor design, as well as game radial menus, aka action wheels in Ashes of Creation. Not that they are there and are planned to be there so much as would they be neat? Would they not be neat? Would we care to see something like that invade our precious MMO? And then dungeons. Just in general, dungeons, because dungeons are a giant topic in themselves. But before I dive into everything here today and start talking with you, the viewer, well, I guess viewers, not just viewer, there's more than one of you out there. I know this. But before we do that, I would like to remind everybody to please, if you do enjoy this content, like on the YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, por favor. If you are not super fan and you're not sure if you're coming back, don't worry about it. Don't worry about liking and subscribing just yet, not until we get you hooked. But please do check us out again. It does help out the channel a lot. If you can drop a comment, I don't even care if it's just a little emote. It means the world to us. It really does. But let's see. If I'm here on my own, I also want to remind everybody that if you are a friend of the tavern and we have talked with you before, we know your name, we have seen you around, please feel free to jump into our Discord. On Tuesdays, our Tavern Talk Tuesdays, we do open it up to friends of the tavern to join us. Just go ahead and hop on in and join the live stream queue, and I will know to pull you on in, and we can talk about things live on the Twitch. But in general, it's a fun thing to do. I promise you. I promise you. But on to some of the topics for discussion tonight. Female armor design. Go ahead and pop a link to a forum discussion here into chat for you. And then another link, which was posted in there, to a Kaos and Lace video where Lace, Annie Lace to be specific, talks about her desire for there to be feminine armor designs. Now, I have to say, I don't know what you guys think, but personally, I do like a feminine armor design on the ladies. It doesn't need to be hypersexualized or crazy. Like, doesn't need to be a comic book superhero wearing spandex. But I would just like to be able to look over and know if that is a let's say human female or a short feminine looking elf guy, because there's not a whole lot of difference in the armors right now. But this person who posted on the forums, individuated soul, took it a step farther. They went a little bit satirical with it. I don't know, maybe it is exactly how they feel, but to me it feels satirical just to make a point. But ironically stating that so AOC female design thus far is very Puritan. I don't know if they're trying not to offend people who outrage when females wear sexy, attractive armor sets in games. I will now attempt to reverse engineer AOC female armor design pillars. Again, these are not my words, and I'm assuming these are being stated out in a somewhat sarcastic tone. But they say, number 1, cover as much skin as possible. And then A, if skin must be shown, ensure it's just the belly. 2, make it as functional as possible despite it being a fantasy game. 3, when you finish your design, ask yourself, can I cover more skin? 4, make the design resemble the male version as much as possible. 4A, copy paste the male armor and just add a boob plate to save time. And like I said, I think that's maybe going a little bit excessive on it, but there were some examples of the armor sets, and some of them do look remarkably similar, and it just looks like a small statured male instead of a female. Although I will say, on the other side of things, there are some armor sets that are absolutely, you should almost not really care if it has a feminine design, because it's made for absolute and utter just battle effectiveness, right? And Pockets says, I think about the armor in Mandalorian. I don't mind full armor, but both should be options in game. Yeah, and that's the thing. Full armor, it doesn't necessarily have to be like scantily clad in order to be feminine either. There have been some examples I've seen over time, and it's possible to do, just to make the form look a little bit more diminutive. I guess diminutive is kind of a different, an incorrect word there. A little bit more, I don't know, accentuated in certain ways that just makes it look like it's obviously not a guy trying to look brutish and imposing. It's more of a female design. Like, you look at cars, right? Let's look at cars. If you were to sit down in somebody's car, you just know that there's certain things that just have kind of a feminine touch to how it's set up, or how the, you know, any kind of decorations on it or within it. You can kind of tell it's got that feminine kind of touch to it. Just the same kind of thing with the armor would be nifty. But there's Diggs responded back saying, I never looked at Ash's armor and thought Puritan. And I would agree, I never really thought Puritan myself. But then he goes on to continue, I think even in a high magic fantasy setting, people with boobs hanging to their knees are not going to be physically fit enough to do much adventuring. I would most likely use magical means to have breast reductions. I mean, that makes sense. That'll throw off your entire balance, am I right? I've heard enough complaints that I would say that that should be a fairly accurate statement. I don't have that problem myself, but I have heard. I have relatives, and some of them are female. As one comedian said, I have this thing. There's females that it just runs in my family history. And then the original poster said, yeah, I get the practicality argument, but this isn't a game focused on realism that crosses over beyond some esoteric elements present. Some show some skin, have some artistic fun, give variety so that those that want that style have options. I'm rolling a male character, so my argument is more for the principle of the matter. Now, I will say, wasn't there... Let me look up the one armor set, because there was one that was absolutely like gladiatorial looking, and it absolutely had like bikini plate. Let me actually pull it up. I didn't pick it up before this, but it was actually almost comical. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong, but just the switch from some of the armor sets not really having a defining male female characteristics, over to having one that was absolutely like you could tell, absolutely without a doubt, because it was the bikini armor look. All right, let's see, gear, housing mounts, gear, housing mounts, armor. I'm gonna take this moment to once again praise Lex and team for this lovely wiki, because it is a great source of information. There we go. Okay, there we go. Now I scroll down to it. There's so much info, in fact, that I have to scroll a ways to get to exactly what I'm looking for. Now, I wonder if I can figure out exactly when this one came out, because I've got to say it was like 2 years ago. Maybe 3 at this point. Armor. And I know I'm not mental. It's just taking me a while to find this. I have not yet lost my marbles. Oh. Oh, there it is. All right, open image and new tab. There's let me see. Maybe I didn't go down far enough in it. Scroll down and see it. Okay, maybe it's on another page. I didn't read every post in this thing. Unless you meant, did they have it in the very first thing? Because that'll be silly if it was. Okay, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. No, you right. It was way in the bottom little corner of that that 5x5 setup. So I mean that one, yeah, it still resembles the guy armor, but I mean when both of them are that scantily clad, it's kind of hard to really accentuate too much. But if you see what I mean on even this one, let me actually share this window so I can show you what I'm talking about by accentuating it in certain ways, just some way. Because this one I think does it even if there wasn't the obvious like contour to the chest area. There's also the spikes on the shoulders if they carry the concept all the way to the final product. If they carry the concept all the way to final product, then the shoulder spikes right there would be a great way to know. Like the guy's looks like a giant anvil basically. Okay. This thing, okay. Hold that. Yes. Alright, now I just need to resize it so it's not all crazy. And it was the Imperator set. I'm gonna have this just take up a little bit of extra space here. Apologies. There you are. Check that out. Yeah, the Pyre one has a belly button too. Nice. Yeah, Basil. I had to do something with the network. It was doing weird stuff and being kind of a pain. So I ended up doing a refresh on it, and it disconnected me shortly, and then reconnected. But yeah, with this one, we can even zoom in a little bit more just to get a good look at what I'm trying to show there. Don't necessarily need that whole axe in there. We don't need that whole axe picture. There we are. So you see like the spike on his shoulder actually has something that looks almost like an anvil, like a banana shaped anvil, I guess, curled on the top, and it's only on one shoulder. So it definitely gives a more masculine type of feel to it. And then the feminine looking armor has just the smaller little spikes jutting out, one on each shoulder instead of only on one. Bananville, yes. Bananville. I love it. But that's kind of all I would really look for, is just something to differentiate. Even like around the collar, you can see the guy like right on his like almost I'd say breastbone, but like off the collar of the armor itself, there's like two giant spikes right there, and the female armor doesn't have that. Even small differentiations like that, where the male one just looks more raw than the female. But I also see, if I see what you were talking about, Pockets. I'm curious, when you say that you don't mind full armor but both both should be options in game. Thinking back on it, did you mean having, say, one specific type of armor set being able to be, say, more masculine or more feminine, depending on just how someone selects it to be? Or were you talking about full armor versus more revealing armor? Because I think, Basil, I think we even covered this the other day in one of the streams, talking about, you know, equal opportunity when it comes to the armor. Like, sure, give anybody more revealing armor if they want it, but I think the full armor versus revealing, okay. Because I mean, when it comes to actual like battle armor, I could be totally 100% down with it should be like full plate, hardcore armor. But if you need agility, then I wouldn't see any reason why you can't have something that's more revealing or less covering in hardcore like metal wall. But I know the aspect that Chibi and I are definitely more curious and hoping for is just the more masculine and feminine features. So you can just tell from a distance if that person has, you know, if they're playing a character that is more masculine or is more feminine. Should the armorsmith be able to make it revealing or not? You know, that would actually be a cool thing to be able to do, wouldn't it? Now, I wonder if you could make, say, a plate armor that was revealing, and then very next thing, make a plate armor that's not revealing. Do you think that they should have the same stats as well? Or do you think there should be say a balance in stats? Like one will help your agility a little bit more, your dexterity rather, and the other is a little bit more vitality. Because that would be a cool feature as well. That way, if people wanted to play with the more revealing armor, they would have the choice. But it's definitely going to be much more dexterity capable rather than protective capable. And Pocket says, I think of like Leona from League of Legends. She has some skins that are literal bikini, and then she has most skins that are full plate and beefier than most other character armor. Yeah, and that's fair enough. And you know what? I'm going to be playing a tank, and I'm going to be a guy, and I'm going to have like just the biggest set of plate armor possible. But I'm also going to have something else just for fun that's going to be a little bit more like leather with some metal involved, like something that's a little bit more agile, because I do want to try evasion tanking and other things besides just building for defense and health point. All right, Basil, you enjoy the lurk, and thank you for stopping by, and hopefully see you again after you get done eating. And Wolfie McGee says, if it's from the same armorsmith. So if it is from the same armorsmith, were you saying that you would think you would want it to be the same exact armor stats? If it's from the same armorsmith, or the same armorsmith could make the two different revealing and not revealing armor, but it would be different protective levels, but the same style. Like remove the arms from the plate, the chest piece, and remove like an ab section. And Pocket says, I know for my desire, I want to be a melee. Oh, sorry, that just I know for my desire, I want to be a melee and will sacrifice defensive stats and more armor protection for agility, dex, attack speed, movement. Yeah, and see, I can see the value in that. That's exactly what I could see the value in, especially when you're doing an attack roll. If you're trying to become more of a glass cannon type, or like an actual true evasion style rogue ranger that's, you know, almost legendary ninja like. You jump into battle, you do your thing, and you get out real quick. Blow your cooldowns, escape, live to fight another minute after your cooldowns come back. Same stats with ability to change for customer wants. Okay. And that would be neat. I know they're trying to avoid the whole I mean, I guess the only way to say it, because I don't know if they termed it any specific way, but almost like the arms war with, sexy outfits and stuff, is just seeing everybody suddenly move towards, the more skimpy clad armor because that's what they want to see, versus getting the realism, kind of like the argument that happened years ago about color palettes. And if dyes should be able to be made into quote unquote not natural colors like neon green and such like that, because it would be too distracting and it would remove immersion, and making weird names like Bong Ripper 420 is the popular one people use, right? So there's people talking about that would ruin their immersion too. So I think that might be the direction they try to keep moving, but we'll see. Like I said, just something would be nice though. Let's see. So like the Wolf McGee says, like the armor would need an extra, or would need a slot for extra, but protect the same via plate. Okay, I gotcha. And then Valentine says, don't make revealing cosmetics into a benefit or degenerate. Just make it a cosmetic choice. That way you won't have anyone try to state it is the only way they can be meta is to be revealing. Yeah, and I could see that too. And that's but Bucket says, hey, I'll rock that bikini breastplate on my dude character, but it's best in slot. Exactly. I don't know if anybody has seen what was it, Shangri-La Frontier. They were talking about a trash video game, and at the final boss, you had to beat it with a wrestling mask and basically a Speedo, and that had to be your outfit. They didn't even know why. They thought maybe it was a best in slot thing, but that's the way you had to beat the end boss. But yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I suppose my end view is going to be that, I don't necessarily like the end game stuff having to be revealing and skimpy and such. I don't really even see the need for any of it to necessarily have to be skimpy, but yeah, having options there is nice for those who do want it, as long as you don't go crazy and you can outfit yourself with running around in literal underwear and still be tanking dragons with it. That would just be to the point of silliness. Say, love that the best in slot boots for classic WoW for warriors were pink boots. Oh, that's fantastic. Is that was that always a thing? Because I didn't play during classic and I didn't pick it up during the new WoW classic. Is that something they put in there new, or was that always a thing from the old days? Oh man, I dig it. Yeah, I didn't pick up WoW until it was just about to hit Lich King. So I missed all those fun things, but I would have loved it if the warrior set was absolutely boss, beast, destructor, magnificent, amazing and scary, and then just pink boots clashing. Absolutely. Revealing in full should cost the same mats to make. Yeah, and I can see that being a direction. Kind of make it equal across the board. That way everybody has the choice to just wear what they want to wear, and make it more of a style decision on how they wanna outfit themselves. Oh no, I do kind of like the idea of it being, but yeah, I guess if it were to make it so that it cost less mats but had less points and augmented it in a different way, it might still become like a best in slot. Because earlier I was saying it'd be neat if the skimpier armor helped out your dex more, made you more dexterous, but removed more of the mitigation factors. But if you're going for quickness, then you're immediately going to go for the skimpiest things you can find, right? And just look for the biggest points you can get for the least negative impact to dex and the most positive impact possible. And eventually that might meta into wear sandals and shorts. Yeah, tidy whitey Templar, exactly. All right, so let's see here. Next, we're talking about action wheels. All rogues now wear bikinis, exactly. And it's got to be a 2-piece. It can't even be a 1-piece because that's too much cloth. It'll get you an extra 2 dex points if you wear the 2-piece instead of the 1. I mean, at that point, we're talking about the top 1% of people. Am I right? Because 2 dex points when you're level 50 is going to be like a 1% increase to your dex. But it is an increase. All right, so the next thing that we found here was radial menus in-game, also known as action wheels. So there were actually 2 posts. One of them was really the first that came around, and that was this here. And this had brought up the idea of radial menus like you see in Final Fantasy, or honestly any of the like third-person shooters or even first-person shooter action type games like Overwatch even. Where you can hit a button and it'll pull up a radial menu and you can just select it really quick and keep going about your way just to signal something or use something, use a potion. I didn't use them myself, but Baldur's Gate 3 had them where you could put, a bag on your radial menu and it would open up another bag, different radial menu. So you could have a radial menu within radial menu. For how much focus that Ashes is gonna have on the open world PvP, I think that would be a great addition for a couple specific reasons. If nothing else, because they're aiming to have 200v200 combat. And I don't know about you guys and who you've run with, but in a single voice chat, I've had up to 40 or 50 people, and it's been absolute chaos. So trying to coordinate in an open world setting with 250 people, or even 200, or even 100 would be just bananas. So having a non-verbal signal that you are either ready over here on this side of the map, or that you need healing and you're in the middle of a melee area just getting beat down, or that there's a boss level player that just rolled out of the castle gate and you need help with them, and not having to try to speak up over the people that are talking memes and such, I think it would be super helpful. Plus, just the spontaneity of being in the open world in a, let's say, raid, and having another group roll in, and now you have to focus and react super quickly. And what could be more quick than hitting one key to choose, say, 8 different options and snag it real quick, like specific potions or something like that. Shifting over to certain gear, let's say, that you have in your bag, if you're able to still, if the plan remains to be able to change up your primary weapon for one that's in your bag, what if you have say 6 different swords in your bag for different situations, and you recognize that this one's going to be your best, and you have them all set up on your little action wheel, and you can hit a button and pull up the one sword that you need for that situation for whoever's coming in to attack you. You've got that tank mage coming in at you, and you just know how to take down a tank mage because they usually pick this and that because of the benefits it gives to this raid or this dungeon you're in right now. And so they're almost guaranteed to be choosing this type of build, and you have a counter for it. That would be super, super helpful. And to be honest, what's the hurt or what's the harm in just going ahead and adding something like that? I have no idea what it would take for engineering time or power to get something like that done, though. So I don't know if that would just be a full-fledged skill creep item or something they might be able to fit in over the course of time. But I think it'd be neat to add in there. And pockets is something I didn't think about. The few people who have a flying mount could actually fly over a battlefield and sort of play commander and watch where movements are going. Oh, absolutely. And The other thing to think about, which is going to be pretty cool and probably distracting while you're on the ground, is that if mounts have combat abilities, and a flying mount is probably going to have a combat ability that it can use while flying, are there going to be aerial battles between node mayors and between castle owners and anybody else who randomly picked up say a temporary drop of that dragon that's going to last for a week before it dies and disappears? Is there going to be just dogfights right above your node war, your node siege? How interesting would that be to watch? Especially if they're on opposing sides, like legitimately on opposing sides before just kind of stumbling into a war. But say one node was, declaring a siege on another node, and you had both mayors there on the battlefield. Neither one of them could pay too much attention to what's going on the ground, but I can imagine their frantic cries in a voice chat with, as many people as they could fit, trying to scream out commands on where people are going, where they need to defend next, what to watch out for, at the same time as, oh god, he's getting me, oh, dodge, roll, do a barrel roll. Wolfie McGee says, I would just prefer an alt control shift bars versus a wheel in the middle of my screen. And I'm typically the same way there, Wolfie. I don't know how many skills Ashes will have when all is said and done, and how many items will be useful, and how many will be on the same cooldown. So how many skill bars it would take to be fully equipped with everything you could possibly use. But I think if nothing else, in a giant battlefield like that, it would be nice to have the, hey, over here, hey, help me, I need heals, I can heal, that type of thing, like you would see in like Overwatch type of game. Or the weapon swapping thing, like Valentine just mentioned something about there. I'll get to you in a moment there. So Pockets real quick says, take one down and then the other side has the advantage. Doesn't remounting require to go back to your castle or city? I wouldn't think so, Pockets, but it's, I suppose, possible. I'll try to look that up here while I take a moment. Let's see. Royal Mount. Royal Mounts. So let's see, they can be dropped from that. So mayors of metropolis nodes, kings and queens of guild castles, royal mounts can also be dropped from legendary world bosses, capable of flight, utilized by mayors. Flight capable mounts dropped from world bosses, okay. The dropped as eggs are timed, they're not breedable. They're able to be bought and sold to other players when you find them as an egg. 3 or 4 times larger than gliding mounts. Royal horses, dragons, mythical creatures. General flying isn't you can create maximum flight time. There'll be flight time associated with it, but the flight time will be considerable. Thinking between let's see. So what? Okay, I'll get to that at another time. The ones that are dropped as eggs will have a lifespan of 15 to 30 days, and it looks like they have a 20 to 30 minute flight time that you can use them for before they go away. Royal stables. Castles come with royal stables. Mayors choose to build them on the node once chosen. Okay, need to rebuild stables through quest. Okay, yeah, royal mounts must be... no, you got it, it's right here. It's actually underneath royal stables, and royal mounts must be mounted in a royal stable in order to fly. And that was from a 2018 live stream. Royal mounts will be the only class of mounts that can fully fly in the world, and they will be needed to be mounted while in a royal stables. Royal stables are a building that can be built in a node if elected to be built by the mayor and supported by the community, building it up through the quest to do so. castles come with a royal stable as well. So once you have a royal stable and you become that mayor or king or queen, you may mount the creature there and then take it wherever you wish. Okay, so even further, the royal stables that's required to be able to mount your royal mount has to be supported by the community doing quests to build it up. So just saying, not every mayor is going to have the ability to have a royal mount. So good call on that one too. Good call on that one. Maybe that's what the time frame meant. So it'll be 20 or 30 minutes worth of flying time per royal mount. So they would have to, if their node was like 5 or 10 minutes of flight away from the node they're sieging, they're going to waste up to almost half of their flight time just getting to the other node. And I think 10 to 20 minutes, that's a long time. That's a long time in something like a siege, because if they fall, wow, if that's a 10-minute flight time or even a 5-minute flight time, it's probably at least twice that on a normal mount, I would imagine, because you can go absolutely straight. You don't have to go around things, over things, worry about things on the ground attacking you, like monsters, creatures, and such. So yeah, they might be just leaving the battle altogether to go get their flying mount, or they're just on the ground for the rest of their time there, depending on how much time they have in the day and how the battle is looking. If their side's doing all right, they might go ahead and run all the way back to the node just to get another royal mount. Or family summons, I guess. They could have somebody in their family positioned back at the home node, summon them back. All right, so Pocket says, oh, okay, yeah, I know biggest OP is my brother, who thinks the advantage of flying mounts being so selective in ownership that those people will gain all the power. I've had to try and find more info on them specifically, but these are all people you take out of the fight. Yeah. Exactly. Try to take them out, get them out of there, and then they have a choice to make: either fight on the ground like us normal peasants, or go all the way back to theirs. Now, opposition. Okay. Gotcha. Biggest op. Now, at that point, that does give home field advantage for flying, at least. Because if a mayor of the node being sieged is trying to fly and gets knocked out of the sky, they're probably going to die in that encounter, I would imagine. And then they would respawn, run back into the same node that's being sieged, mount up, and get back up in the skies. Yeah, that'd be neat. Then circling back here, Mr. Valentine says, with weapon swapping, do you think we'll need to swap cooldown time on switching to a main hand weapon in your bag? I think if you swap instantaneously, it will feel more like RuneScape combat, which I particularly dislike. Well, what I haven't played RuneScape in forever, since literally the original RuneScape. So please remind me, what was bad about RuneScape combat? I just remember the entire game itself. I just didn't like. I didn't really get into it at all. But so I like the idea of, if you were to switch a weapon out of your bag into your hand, if it takes you, a full second to swap, I'm perfectly okay with that. Takes you a full second to put one weapon away and grab the other. But if you're talking about a cooldown, like you switch your weapons once and then you can immediately switch again and immediately switch again, and you want a cooldown that says you can only do it once per minute, that I think is kind of cheesy, personally, just because it's cheesy in a way that it's such an artificial limitation that it just doesn't feel good. It wouldn't feel good to me. And Skinny Bruce, why would you say you should never be allowed to swap weapons during combat? What's the hesitation on that? Or not even hesitation, I guess that was a full-fledged statement. There was no hesitation. What's the point of a build then? well, you have a build, but your weapon isn't part of your build. You can build your character around the weapon or build the weapon around your build. But I mean, a weapon's just another part of it, right? It's just like changing from a melee weapon to a ranged weapon. It's just like changing up and using your PvP skills that are on your bar that are not so good in PvE, and just using that when you're attacking a player. You're switching out your skills technically because it's all in your bag. You're just using a different tool in your bag. Yeah, weapons are part of your build. So what if both weapons, one you have in your bag and the one in your hand, are part of your build? But it's just different angles of the build. Like you have different skills and different spells, but one of them is used for AoE and one is used for single target. Should you have to build your character specifically for single target only, or AoE only? Or should you be allowed to build your character to do both, depending on which tool in your kit that you decide to use? Because that's my feeling on it. Is weapons in your bag are like a tool in your kit. Just like any skill, like anything else, it's a tool meant to be picked and chosen as needed. Let's see. Wolfie McGee earlier said, when it comes to battles, you can't have everything you'll need for the battle, so choices and what you take needs to matter. Yeah, true. When it comes to, if you're talking about weapon swapping there, Wolfie McGee, you do have choices. Even if you take 17 different weapons, that's taking up all your bag slots. So you're literally packing for war, and that's it. That's all you're taking. You're not going to be able to pick up a lot of drops in the area. You're not going to be able to do any farming on the way. You're not going to be able to do any looting of corpses, because if you slay somebody on the battlefield, they might have some valuable resources that they were just mining out, and for some reason they decided to come to a battlefield and fight you, right? So you may or may not have space for those. Granted, there are the different shaped gathering bags and all, but I'd need to look and see if those take up actual bag slots, because if you have 5 bag slots and 2 of those are for just your general bags, then your general bags are going to get filled up if you don't have the right shaped materials going to the right shaped bags. So if you're not equipped with an ore gathering bag and your only bag is for vegetables, and they're all like vertical shaped 4x1 or 1x4, however you want to see it, but the ore is a 4x4, then it's all going to go into your regular bag. It could be the most valuable ore in the world and you're not going to fit it in there. And if you're filled up and packed up with a couple different mounts, some different armor for situations, some different weapons that you can switch in or out of combat, you're not going to have room to pick up that ore. So that's a decision you have to make. So, okay, so let's see here. Valentine responded with old school RuneScape. You have kit swapping to do the most damage with the damage type. So you're going to cast magic, so you have a kit for that. Then you go for a ranged attack, you swap into your ranged kit, and as fast as you can click it in your backpack, and you repeat that while fighting someone. I mean, is it... And let me just make sure I'm understanding this. Kit swapping being... when you say that, it sounds to me like it's an entire kit, like your armor from head to toe and a weapon and maybe certain other little gadgets that you're wearing or can use, and maybe even skills. But I would imagine they wouldn't include skill tree swaps at the same time. Weapon, armor, miscellaneous items. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that... I don't think it would be as extreme as that, because that one does sound a little bit excessive even for me. If you're going to try to change out your chest plate in the middle of battle, even if you would have to hit that change, and then your character would have to sit there for a solid 5 to 10 minutes just changing that stuff to be in combat and changing. So I could see positioning yourself behind like a dark corner and then maybe changing everything, but yeah, I wouldn't see that being able to be done in mid combat. So much as, a weapon, it's you put away one sword and you grab another. It's not so bad if it's just the weapon. I mean, even a shield might be kind of pushing it, but I could even see that being a thing, being able to swap shields. But even that's more involved than just switching out a weapon. But I see what you're saying, and that would be absolutely maddening, Valentine, if they could switch out literally everything, because then you have no idea what you're up against. You could walk up on somebody with a fishing outfit on, and next thing you know, they're the warlord of wherever, storming in with full armor plate and a giant two-handed great sword of "we'll smash your face." It'll be terrible. And hey, welcome in there, Golid. Yeah, it has been a little while. Hey, there's been a lot of people AFK for a good minute. The lag time between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 has been it's been a little bit bearing on some people. And I know a good handful of people that have absolutely checked out until they hear more about Alpha 2 coming up in the near future. Once a date's announced for that, they'll crawl back out of the woodwork. But glad to see you swung back before that happened. All right, and then Pocket says, I think about the movie The Patriot. Mel Gibson had like 5 different rifles and then swapped to Tomahawk mid-combat and went melee. Not being able to swap in combat is not realistic. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a thing. It can be done. I know in a lot of movies where people are swapping weapons, they're literally dropping one or throwing one out of the way and they grab another one from somewhere. And it does stretch the bounds of quote-unquote reality to say that you can, in 1 second, take a sword accurately and nicely put it away in a sheath and then reach around for wherever the other sword is and pull it out, let alone doing so with something awkward like an axe or a hammer or a mace or all of the above, especially with the maces that are almost body sized that they were showing in earlier versions of Ashes. Those would be very unwieldy and definitely take longer than a second, but to be honest, we can blend reality and fantasy a little bit, or else we wouldn't be casting fireballs from our hands in the game. So if there's a little bit of a delay between putting one weapon away and pulling the other out, totally okay for me. Like give it a 1 or 2 second requirement to change the weapon out while in combat, because that adds more realism to it if you really need the realism, but it still allows you to use your entire kit. Remember, throwing your helmet is fast and going for your sidearm. Exactly. And then said, let's see. Yeah, Golden says, yeah, throwing a gun when they run out of ammo. Yeah, bounce it off someone's face from across the room because you hit that last click. And Skinny Bruce says, totally okay to swap prior to combat. During combat, you're against. Where does that huge hammer go? Well, I mean, where does it go when you swap outside of combat? It goes to the same place. To be honest, if you can do it outside of combat, you can do it inside of combat. I mean, again, I did admit at least that it would be more awkward to do something like that in combat, but you figure if you're a quote unquote like professional, practiced, experienced combat specialist using a giant hammer or a giant axe or a sword or a shield or whatever, you're probably going to be very practiced in taking care of that weapon and or putting it back where it's supposed to go and sheathing it potentially in a hurry because you might need to do something else that doesn't involve holding that weapon, and pulling it out in a hurry because you definitely need to use your weapon in a hurry. So if you're practiced with all of that, then you should have a lot of it done by muscle memory. Kind of the same way that you can drive the same path to and from work every day in a car, one of the more sophisticated pieces of machinery that anybody will operate in their life for most people. And you can do it almost on autopilot, right? Whereas when you first started, remember when you first started driving, it took so much concentration because you felt like you were going to veer off the road at any moment. You'd hit a bump and the wheel would shake and it would freak you out. You know, there's what do I do with all these lines on the street? Oh my gosh, all these lights are going crazy at night. I don't even know. I can't see far ahead enough to see, is that red light for me or is that the next one after this street? Like, when do I need to turn right? Let me look for these street signs. How am I going to find these street signs? They're not even really well lit. It was really nerve-wracking and really difficult to do, but after practice, after a couple years of practice, you had it down to where you can literally look in 3 different mirrors, look over this shoulder and look over that shoulder, turn on a blinker, and change lanes over the course of 2 seconds. At least I can. It's just a simple, all right, looks like I'm good. I'm getting over. Let's see. Could it be a cast time that can't be interrupted or interrupted? I mean, I could see that being okay to use as like a cast time, where in a lot of games they do have where if a mage starts casting, they can be slowed down while they're being hit, and then potentially have it actually being interrupted by an interrupt type action. Yeah, I could absolutely see that being a thing, and I would be perfectly okay with it as long as I have the option. I don't care if it's adjusted for realism. Would I like it to be adjusted for quote unquote realism? Not really, because it to me just doesn't make sense too much with all the things that are going on in the world. I mean, it doesn't make sense in this is a fantasy video games sense is what I'm talking about. It makes sense as far as adding realism to it. And adding the if you want a bonus whatever, you're gonna have to work for it. That part makes sense, and I can admit that. But when we're talking about a fantasy video game and I'm just trying to change my main hand weapon, and that's all I'm trying to change, it just seems like it shouldn't have a barrier to entry, but I'm okay with it existing. Perfectly okay with it existing. Make it a 2-second cast time, and it works just like a caster in WoW, where you can be delayed by getting hit. And that ranger ability is going to be your bane, because you're going to be trying to do a 2-second cast, and there's going to be 700 arrows hitting you every second with that Gatling gun firing rate that they had. And that 2 seconds is going to turn into 10 real quick. Or should I say real slowly? And yeah, Skinny Bruce, that's something to be said about kind of any MMO, really. If you really think about it, any MMO that gets realistic with how much stuff you can carry, people as a whole, as a large group, and speaking in large group think terms, people don't like to play those games because there is such a thing as too much realism in video games. You add too much and it just feels like you're being bogged down. Unless it's specifically designed to be a survival type game. If it's a survival type game, then that's literally the point of the game. But anything outside of that, I mean, that's the reason why they put in options to remove carry weight in D&D, for crying out loud. And that's why it's on any of the online tabletops, there's literally a checkbox you can say that says ignore weight. Also ignore weight of coin, so that you can have options for weight and people aren't just absolutely bogged down by carrying more than a dagger in a backpack because they're a rogue. And if they put more than 1 day's worth of food in that backpack, then they suddenly can't move more than 10 feet per turn. It's just, it gets a little bit too, overencumbrance. 1 extra sweet roll and you're pinned. Yeah, exactly. So like the number of weapons you carry, that's explained by just how can you carry what looks like the equivalent of 2 tons of ore in your backpack, just because you can put 20 per stack and 700 stacks because you have 112 bags, and you're just absolutely overburdened in realistic terms, but you can carry them and run around and fly and everything. So our gear doesn't drop, but our glint does. Oh, and top of the evening to you. Hello there, Irish Viking, and welcome on in. Welcome on in. Thank you for stopping by. But I mean, I can see where you're going, Bruce, and I agree to a point, that it shouldn't be absolutely wacky with being able to switch a lot of stuff out, but main hand weapon to me, or even being able to switch your ranged weapon, because you're already switching between main and like a melee and range, right? So if you're switching between main and range, you should be able to switch out your main hand weapon. You should be able to switch out your ranged weapon. Hey, I mean, if that's the warrior's life, I'm personally, I'm going to be optimizing with my tank. I'm probably going to pick maybe 2 or 3 weapons at most, and that's it. That's all I'm doing. Unless for some reason a tank mage ends up really benefiting from carrying a staff or a wand for one reason or another. I can't think of why they would, but if they would, then yeah, I'll probably max that one. Other than that, it's going to be like swords and maces, and I'm going to have a shield. And I might choose a 2-handed just so I can get extra damage while I'm out there, like, questing. But yeah, it's going to take time to get proficient in all that stuff, for sure. And yeah, Viking, your question there, that one's really tricky. Gear doesn't drop, but our glint does. So if you are a normal everyday Ashes Andy, you're walking around, you're doing your thing, and somebody jumps out of the trees and stabs you in the back of the head and you fall over dead, you will drop like gathered resources. You'll have a chance, you'll drop a certain amount of resources, and if you fight back, you'll drop less, but you also won't give corruption. Once you start becoming corrupted yourself, though, the more corrupted you get, the more of a chance you'll have to drop gear and completed items instead of just gatherable items. For instance, if you had a bunch of ore in your bag, and then you also were a blacksmith and smelter, and you turned some ore into some swords, and you're walking around with all of the above. You had some ore, you had some ingots, and you had some swords. If you're just walking around minding your own business and somebody kills you, you're gonna drop some ore, and that's it. If you become corrupted, you might start dropping some of the smelted materials, and I would assume a lesser chance of dropping a sword. But I don't think they've clarified if there's a difference between those, like the processed goods and finished goods. But if you become really corrupted, I do believe, and I'm going to confirm this right now, but I do believe I recall Steven saying that you might have a chance to even drop equipped gear if you get too corrupted. So, corruption. Let's see, but the question really is, do you drop things for defending yourself? If you're corrupted, yeah, you can. So here's a random example. So let's say you are, again, just walking around minding your own business and somebody slays you. You might lose, say, 10% experience penalty, right? And you might drop 10% of your gatherable goods. Just using super easy round numbers here. But if you didn't defend yourself, you'll drop 10% of each. Your experience, you'll get 10% experience debt and 10% of your gatherable goods. If you do defend yourself, you will only drop 5% of your gatherable goods and lose 5% of your experience. So you'll go 5% into experience debt. But you also won't give any corruption to the person because you fought back. Therefore, they're not killing a true innocent because you defended yourself. You stopped and defended yourself. So it's kind of like a, do you want to let that person get corrupted and you lose more? Or would you like to lose less and they don't gain corruption and maybe you'll see them back there again in a few minutes when you go to collect your stuff from your body? And then Pocket says, but the attacker needs to have a bag that is going to pick up the items you dropped. So if they only have herb bags on them and you're a miner, they won't be able to take your stuff. Minding your own business. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is if the stuff just doesn't really fit in your bags, then you're kind of screwed if you're the aggressor. It's just stuff laying on the ground for you at that point. Unless you have a friend who brought the other kinds of bags. But let's see here. And circling back a little bit, well, actually, here, let me finish up with this one here. Irish Viking just replied back, says, so in open world, that applies, but when siege time comes, I wonder how corruption will work then. So that's the fun thing. Organized PvP, like sieges and the castle, the wars over the castles and things like that. Caravans, they're either going to have no experience debt or they're going to have reduced experience debt. And then things like corruption shouldn't be applying to those at all in any way. So if you're going to an organized PvP event, then it's no worries. Just murder and mayhem is what the game's about right there. Dive in and start smacking people around. And yeah, now circling back over to Mr. Valentine saying, can we have overencumbrance impact mule and mount speeds? I think that would be cool to see. You know, I would be okay with that personally, Mr. Valentine. I don't know what you folks feel. But yeah, overencumbrance, I could see that being a thing. Again, would I like to see it? Probably not necessarily. I could see it being a cool additional factor when it comes specifically to mules, because they're pack mules and that's their purpose. So you got to play the game, so to say. But in a way, needing to take certain types of bags and fill certain types of bags in certain types of ways, I think is kind of a way to make sure that you can't even hit overencumbrance. But I think it would be neat to have the choice to overencumber your mount by stacking, like overstacking, you know? Like if you can fit, say, 4 stacks of 10 in your ore bag on your mule, and that's the stack, and when you're carrying it, that's as high as you can stack it. If you have a bag that lets you have like 2 sets of 4x4 ore squares, but your mule lets you carry 4 of those, you can only take them, each stack can only go up to 10, and that's it. So you have 20 in total, but you can't purposely stack it more. But if you have a mule, you could stack all 4 stacks up to 10, but then for every one that you stack on, it reduces, every one single ore you stack on reduces it another like 1% in speed. That would be kind of cool. I think that'd be neat. Or 2% or 3% or whatever the balance works out to be, where you can increase your mount's capacity up to 50% before it comes to a complete stop. Because in theory, you're risking yourself out there with a slower mule to carry more stuff for somebody else to come and steal, rather than just going back at full speed to get back to town, drop it off, and then go back and keep hunting down more items. So that's very much like a risk versus reward, and trying to balance between all that. Yeah, and husbandry allows you to make beefy mules. Yeah. All right, and Basil says, and I think I said welcome back, by the way, but if not, welcome back. So does it matter if you swap weapons, if weapons swap automatically when you use the ability? So that one, circling back, that the conversation we were having with weapon swapping is if you could change out your main hand weapon. Like change your main hand weapon for another main hand weapon, like change a sword for a mace out of your bag or something along those lines. Or a smaller sword for a bigger sword, or a staff for a wand. There's some discussion on if that would make things annoying or overpowered or offer too many options, and it just ends up wasting the fact that you had a build for your character. And then let's see here. And Basil, other comment says, what if I'm being attacked and I come running in the tavern, crying, screaming, and puking? If they kill me, will you loot my stuff for me? I mean, yeah, but we'd only be able to loot a little bit. You stuff's coming back for your body, and make sure it doesn't stink up our tavern. If you make our tavern smelly, we might not be happy about it. Okay, clean up your body, and then after you clean up your body, then we'll return your stuff. All right, Irish Viking says, in Conan Exiles, they had gear that allowed someone to pick up a ton of stuff. So it used to be 12 raiders and 1 mule player who would run in after the 12 guys killed the targets. I mean, that's not a terrible idea. Not a terrible idea. If that was a thing that worked, just have literally one person be the mule. Although I think if everybody can have a mule creature with them, then at that point there'd be 12 raiders and 12 mules, so they wouldn't really even need that extra mule player though. So they would loot everything and run home while the 12 covered retreat. Yeah, and I think at that point again, like you, at least in Ashes anyway, there's the change where you wouldn't even need that one person to do anything. Although it would be a slower trek back to town, because that one person wouldn't be able to get on a horse and speed away. They'd be on foot with a mule next to them on foot. So I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think you can have both a mount and a mule creature out at the same time. Got the bag, mules. All right, let's see here. Going back up there. Overburden your mule. Should it have a life degrade? And if it dies in transport, you'll need to find a new way to transport. I mean, that could actually be a good thing too. Because you figure, yeah, Wolfie McGee, if you make the choice to overburden your mule, then the longer you make it stay overburdened without like taking breaks and pausing, like when you see in the movies when someone runs their horse ragged, they just ran it almost to death and it's just frothing at the mouth and its eyes are this big and it's trembling and about to fall over. If they didn't stop in a certain amount of time, they kept pushing it at its absolute edge. Then yeah, I could absolutely see something like that carrying over, and that would also be something I could see making sense. If you chose to overburden your mount, then you should probably take the time to take care of it, or else you drop everything to the ground because it dies. Then you got to go get a new mount you got to go back to town to get another mule. Let's see. And let's see. Skinny Bruce says, while keeping 3 two-handers in your bags where space is the premium. Remember, you'll be transporting via mule a very long way, ripe for attack from locals, as you won't be taking it to the nearest town. Yeah, all the above. You'll be taking it to your node. In theory, you might be able to take it to the nearest node. I think it's going to depend on people's choices, because you would want to take it to your node if you are trying to process it or trying to do something with it, or if it's just worth a lot more money in your node. But taking it to the closest node would be a good way to make just quick cash. Oh yeah, it doesn't benefit your node as a node citizen, but are you trying to advance your node or are you trying to advance yourself? I guess it depends on what stage of the game you're in. If it's early on where there's still like a war to figure out who's gonna be the strongest node, or if nodes have been established and now at this point node sieges are what are going to establish if a node succeeds more or grows or not. And then or it won't because the caravan came from there, so the cargo is very low price. Yeah, and see that's where it's going to be. Oh man, it's going to be such a choice, and this is why I'm not really going to be a full tilt economist person trying to figure all this stuff out, because it's going to take spreadsheets and a lot of time looking at all the different nodes and how much it'll sell at in one node versus another, and which one it's going to make more sense to take it to. I will probably be the guy that will end up doing 2 things. If I have a gathering skill, I will probably have a processing skill that matches it on the freehold, and I'll take it to my freehold specifically so I can process it at the maximum level. And then that's it. But if I get something out in the wild, or I happen to just gather something, I might take it to the nearest node just to make some quick money while I'm trying to run off in a different direction. I don't necessarily want to go home with it. So I'll sell it for the most minimal profit just to get rid of it and clear out my bag so I can keep running in the direction I was already going. All right, and then let's see here. Golded says, what do you think about the best guild perks only going to the top 50 people in a guild? The best guild perks only going to the top 50 people. Okay, so you mean like a guild breaking apart into multiple smaller guilds, and the quote-unquote best perks going to whoever is in that core guild of only 50 people. I don't see an issue with that, mainly because if you think about it, it's kind of a smart way to play. If a smaller guild is going to have more perks available, then you may as well take one guild and focus it on PvP, one guild and focus it on, say, crafting, and another one that focuses on whatever. Oh, okay. I haven't had a chance to watch that full thing yet. So far, I've been working so much, and I just took a break the past couple of days to, well, I say took a break, I mean took my work and shoveled it forward a couple days so I could play with the alpha key for Marvel Rivals. But I've still only been able to watch about half of that that AMA, and I need to. But tiers for each guild, so I'm learning something here, and let me absorb this and see what I think about it. So the last live stream, they said there would be tiers for each guild, and the higher tiers in guild get the better perks. Now, is that for the, did they mention, is it a percentage of the higher of the guild has the higher tier, or is it literally just 50 people reserved for that highest tier? Because if there's 50 people reserved for that highest tier, then it's a no-brainer. Almost no matter what your guild is, you split into multiple smaller guilds, and they're all 50, and that's it. Like every portion of your guild is level 50, and that's it. Fine, it's probably, let me see if I can find it in here. Guild perks. I'm on the wiki. I'll see if the wiki has something, because now I'm curious. Okay, so let's see. Guild size can be traded off for guild progression. Guild halls can be unlocked. Guild augments, guild benefits, passives. Smaller guilds can do that. Alliances will be key in creating a larger guild. Larger guilds can siege fortresses. Small groups can do some things better than large ones. Gear enhancements, gear freeholds, honor, reputation, guild ladder. An interguild ladder will rank guilds based on their performance. Okay. PvP seasons. They may not have incorporated that in there as of yet. Into the wiki, I mean. I'm not seeing it by a quick scan. Let me try to just do a search for tier. Okay. Guild augments may apply at the upper tiers of guild progression. Okay, so the only comment on the wiki was talking about you're also going to see perhaps some augment abilities at the upper tiers of the guild levels. Become unlocked for certain members that have a classification of officer or knight. Will have access to those different types of augment abilities that might get unlocked should you go down the non-expansive member lane. The idea that there is to offer these benefits to smaller groups. Yeah, that one's from the 2018 one. And I see what you mean there. The higher tiers as far as ranks and whatnot. But that's kind of going along with the idea of if you have a smaller guild, you're going to be able to offer those types of things to more people, right? In theory, there's only going to be a couple of those in every guild, unless you really trust that core part. Yeah, that's where I see now. So there's a guild size for the options. Yeah, over on the right hand side, like right below the video, they were talking about it. On the right side of the screenshot from the video, I should say. Yeah, so if you go full tilt for progression, I can see the rationale behind it. I kind of like it, but I also kind of don't. It gives you an actual tangible perk built into the game for taking on responsibilities as an officer. That's one of the reasons I can say I like it, because it's hard for a guild master to say, okay, would you like to be an officer? And then somebody says, okay, well, what do I get out of it? You get to be an officer and tell people what to do. Okay, but seriously, what do I get out of it? Guild paid repair bills? Okay. That's not worth it to me, to actually take on the responsibility of being an officer and to actually fulfill those roles and do everything properly, especially now with Discord out there. You're gonna have to manage basically a Discord full of people as well. So if there's legitimately tangible game provided benefits to being an officer, that's one less thing that the guildmaster has to come up with in order to persuade someone to be an officer and be a good officer, so that they stay there and help the guild and truly progress and be successful. So I could see that being a good thing. As someone who doesn't tend to try to fill officer roles, just because I tend to absorb myself in work outside of the game, I could see myself not getting those perks, and I'd be fine without it. But that being said, I would like to see it shared for everybody. I mean, everyone's working towards the guild success, so they should be able to obtain most of them, but they also didn't necessarily spell out in here what kind of perks those were. If it's going to be maybe like the one in that image, Speedy Harvest. The Guild Perks UI Alpha 1 screenshot. It says Speedy Harvest 1. And if you can harvest things, say 10% faster with that, but then you become an officer and now you get 20% faster, that's kind of cool. But nothing that's going to really break the game for anybody else. It's just a little bit of a perk. But if it's going to be something crazy like legitimate combat power enhancements for being an officer, that might get a little bit excessive. But time will tell. Time will tell. I think, and I'm just gonna kind of go with my gut on this, I think I would be okay with it and not really have any issues with a final outcome. Yeah, they included resistance to crowd control, but how much of that was for specifically for things like knights and officers and things like that? If they were the only ones who could resist crowd control, that would be a little bit excessive, I think, for them to go with. But who knows? Maybe that's exactly what they're going to go for. Have there be inter-guild tensions from everyone trying to get to be an officer, maybe, because you know everybody is going to want to try to vie for those spots if they're legitimate combat benefits, yeah? And they seem to like friction, player friction, and player resistance and such like that throughout the rest of the world. Within guild, I could see them adding some in there on purpose too. Add to the drama. So, real quick. So it looks like just passed by a little bit the typical end for the show. I'm going to go ahead and read. I haven't read it yet here, but Wolfie McGee's comment asking about looks like some nodes and pricing on stuff like that. And then right after that, I'm going to find somebody to raid here. I know it looks like we have a couple choices to go over to. If anybody has requests, I will say that I see Nice Gaming, I see Turgo Live. Nice Gaming is obviously talking about some Ashes, so if you're wanting to continue the Ashes addiction, absolutely we can get over there. We got Turgo playing some Apex Legends. We've got Wickasloth playing some Diablo 4. All these gents are in the Ashes community in one way, shape, or form. Two of them are just waiting until after Alpha 2 starts to really put out content there. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Two people think exactly like me. That's where I was going to steer us, but figured I'd give you folks the option. But to steer on back to Wolfie's question there, if two nodes, 3 and 4, have a person running to node 1 for the best price, but node 3 has supplied the market, then node 4 comes in to sell, should price be dropped or set? Okay, so if two nodes, 3 and 4, have a person running to node 1, so we have these two nodes here, have someone running over here to node 1 for the best price, but node 3 has supplied the market, then node 4 comes in, so 3 got there first and sold a bunch of stuff, and then 4 comes in, comes in to sell, should price be dropped or set? Honestly, I think it should be I think it should fluctuate. It should fluctuate based on supply and demand. To be honest, I haven't personally played a game that really reacted to supply and demand. And I think that would be an interesting thing for somebody who's trying to play markets to deal with. So that they know they have to. If they want to sell a whole lot of stuff, they need to spread it out. They need to go to different nodes. They need to make it, travel far to areas that don't really carry it on a normal basis, and they need to be strategic about it. At the same time, the casual player may or may not notice much of a change. And if they do, I mean, it'll impact them a little bit, but they can always grab something else, right? The average player that's not working the market isn't gonna really suffer too badly off of something like that. They will notice the impact, but it won't be terrible. But the actual economy gamers are gonna have a field day with something like that. They would love the bejeebus out of it, and that's another way to take down a node that you do not like. Am I right? Just try to ruin them economically in one way, shape, or form. I think it could be fun. Not my cup of tea fun, but I think it could be fun for somebody out there for sure. It's a feature not many games that aren't purely focused on economy actually pay any attention to. So that's my vote, though. That's my vote. All right. Well, let me see here. Let me get this raid started. We'll get everybody over to Nice. We'll hang out with him for a few moments. Oh, and there's the no one else. There's the no one else. I don't know why I didn't see him a few moments ago, but I really didn't see him a few moments ago. And I think, is there no one else? This is the person we raided last time, so it works out that we're going to Nice this time around. All right, let's see. Raid. Nice. Cool. Well, thank you folks for hanging out. Thank you so much for your time, your words, your conversation. Same, and thanks to you there, Bruce. You as well. We may not have agreed fully on things, but that's what discussion's all about, right? You get some different viewpoints, you talk it out, you kind of see if someone's going to change their ideas, and if not, then you present another discussion and you talk it out. And yes, Pockets has it. Thank you for your time. That is the most valuable thing you can possibly give somebody, as there are never any ways to get that back. It truly does mean a lot. And another thing that means a lot is if you folks do enjoy this content, please give us a like, subscribe where it's possible and where it's free. We like money. I'm not going to turn that down, but in the end, just spending your time with us is the most valuable thing you can do. Thank you. We love you all, and you have yourselves a happy day. Catch you another time. Bye.